So the teaching of Dhamma should be of various types to correspond with the different facets of Dhamma, so that those who receive it and who have various different characters may choose the type that fits them best. What is written in this book has also been done with this same principle in mind, so that the reader may choose what he likes to bring him some benefit. As for me, I am doing the best I can to assure that all who read this book shall gain something of value from it. In the realm of ghosts. We must return once again to the story of Venerable Ajaan Chop, which is not yet finished. At one time he was staying in a cave in the province of Chiang Mai, and it seemed that it was very favorable for his practice of Dhamma. While there, he experienced all sorts of things, both internally and externally, much more than before, and much more extensively, and quite different from everywhere else he had been. He soon saw that this was a good opportunity for him to progress, so he stayed on doing his practice there for many months. His investigation of Dhamma was good and clear, both by day and by night. The weather was good, and the cave was open with a good flow of air through it all the time, so he had no problems with external conditions, which were comfortably cool and constant. But in that place there was something which he felt was unusual in connection with samadhi bhavana. When he did some investigation within his heart, it became calm in a very subtle way, and when he came out of samadhi to go the way of developing wisdom, it was nimble and skillful, without any fumbling, groping, and sluggishness, which are signs that laziness has crept in. He said that while he was there, he was constantly visited by devatas from many different levels and places, both high and low, but he considered that this was quite normal. What was unusual was the large number of ghosts that were moving house with their families from various districts in the northeast of Thailand and going to settle in the hills of the province of Chiang Mai. Some were riding on horses or cattle, holding their children and belongings, and moving their families, passing by in front of the place where he was staying. As soon as they came close to where he was staying, the leader of the group would bring all his followers to pay respect to the Acharya. He asked them why these ghosts were all moving like this. They replied that they were moving their families and relatives from their village. They told him the name of the village, and they were going to a hill which they named in the province of Chiang Mai. They also told him that where they had come from there was little food, conditions were very difficult, and other ghosts had no sense of morality, Sīlaratano. All the time they were robbing, plundering, and killing each other. As ghosts have characteristics that are very like human beings, they become ghosts without any moral sense by following the ways of people. They tormented and harmed each other in the same way as people were doing, causing trouble and confusion so that it was not peaceful like it used to be. Then they heard from relatives who came to visit them that here in Chiang Mai one can find happiness, for the moral behavior of the people is better than elsewhere. They also heard that there were other beings living in the district of Chiang Mai who were similar to themselves, and who were unknown and unrecognized by human beings, and that they were also well imbued with moral behavior and had more peace and happiness than elsewhere. Therefore they decided to move there following the advice of their relatives. One must understand that their relatives were also ghosts. The Acharya asked their leader, "When you say that conditions are difficult and there is little food, how is this, since you do not depend on rice, fish, and other foods, nor on housing, clothing, and other things connected with living and eating as people do? For these are what would make you work with hardship to plant and build things, as well as providing the conditions for those who make trouble by thieving and plundering from each other, as happens in the world of people." The leader replied, "As long as one is a being who has the results of kamma, vipaka, attached to oneself, wherever one is born and lives, one always has results of kamma to support and help one, and to bring one trouble and suffering, in the same way as it does with all other beings. Whether one is born with a material body or any other kind of body is not so important, for what really matters is whether one is endowed with good or evil kamma. One takes birth and goes to live in some form of existence in a particular place, and it is this one himself who lives there just for the happiness and suffering which he is destined to experience. Therefore, to be in want and to have plenty are both found in beings who have good and evil kamma, but how strong or weak they are depends on the background of each individual." The Acharya then asked him, "When you said that some ghosts have Sīlaratano, a moral basis, and some do not, how is this? Do you mean that ghosts know the meaning of Sīlaratano in the same way that people do?" The leader replied, saying, "Sīlaratano is a universal thing. It is not only found in human beings, but everywhere. The virtue and happiness in this principle of nature is known by beings everywhere in the world, but they may or may not have a name for it, because the name is not so important as the nature of it, which all beings like and are bound to depend on. That virtue is in fact Sīlaratano, and the happiness that arises from that virtue is also an aspect of Sīlaratano, but they are different in that the former is causal and the latter is resultant. In saying that ghosts have Sīlaratano, I mean, of course, those ghosts who have good characteristics and whose behavior toward the other ghosts is good. And also, in saying that ghosts do not have Sīlaratano, I mean those ghosts who are not good and who have bad characteristics, and whose behavior towards the others is not good. This is much the same as people who are good and bad, and it shows up in their different forms of behavior respectively. Therefore, wherever Sīlaratano is found, it is peaceful, and wherever it is lacking, there is trouble. What does it mean when you talk about your relatives? And since when have you been relatives to each other? The relatives of ghosts and the relatives of people are the same. In other words, previously when we were humans, we were related together as brothers and sisters and so on, and we were close together and had a high regard for each other in the way people do. Then, when we died, we all came back to birth as ghosts, and we can clearly remember each other, so we have been inseparable blood relatives ever since we were human beings, and will remain so until Dhamma separates us, causing us to be born elsewhere so that we have no way to remember each other. When you live here in Chiang Mai, won't you be thinking of your old home with longing, in the same way as people get homesick when they move to another district? There is nothing to long for, because ghosts do not have farms and homes like people. All we have are a few subtle personal possessions which we carry with us, so there is nothing to long for. Why do you carry these baskets and things along with you to clutter you up, and why do you bring these horses and cows? Wouldn't it be better to leave them behind? Those things which are useful to ghosts, and those things which make up their wealth, are bound to cause attachment in ghosts. Or, to put it another way, there is no real difference between the results of Dhamma in ghosts and in people, nor between that which makes up the wealth of ghosts and of people, when either of them have Dhamma results inherently with them. Where you lived before, and where you are going to live in the Chiang Mai district, are you all bound to have houses to live in and friends about the place, or do some of you live differently? We are bound to have houses, children, relatives, and friends in the same way as people and other beings do, because we are beings of one kind in the same way as all others, but our bodies are not visible to human eyes in the eyes of some other beings, although we are quite visible to those who have deva bodies, and we all have happiness and suffering in the same way, because the hearts of the ghosts and the hearts of all other beings have Dhamma and the results of Dhamma in the same way, so that wherever one is born, whatever type of birth one has, and wherever one lives, one must experience the results of Dhamma in the same way as all other beings. The Acharya said that when he saw these ghosts moving their families, husbands, wives, children, and relatives going by in large numbers, they were in no way different from human beings when they moved their family to a new home. They gave the same kind of impression of being loaded down with all sorts of things which they were carrying along with them, outwardly showing their suffering, anxiety, and unhappiness, just like people moving home, and also like some other creatures, such as ants carrying their eggs from one home to another. It made him think of the Dhamma aphorism where it says, "Dhamma disposes of beings in many different ways, so that they experience different things in accordance with the results of the Dhamma which they have done. In whatever state, and wherever they are born, they come under the overruling influence of their good and evil Dhamma, as also does their sukha and dukkha, and there are no exceptions to the law of Dhamma at all, Those who do good will be rewarded by the result of happiness, and those who do evil will get the result of suffering, dukkha. The two principles of happiness and suffering are to be found in beings everywhere, regardless of their form of birth. The only difference is that they are more gross or more subtle, depending on how gross or subtle the bodily form is. Or, to put it briefly, this is just the bodily home of our happiness and suffering. Therefore, one should not get so excited about birth, which has an equal status with death. For one who does not want to die but desires to take birth in various different forms is in fact desiring nothing but death. The Acharya said, I have thought about these ghosts and the various devas that I have met and seen, and compared their situation with my own, and with that of other beings generally, until I came to understand quite clearly that all are enmeshed in this mass of dukkha together, like a lot of animals of various kinds which have all been confined together in one place. It made me very sorrowful about the condition of birth and death, under which we and all other beings live, never knowing if or when we will be able to get free from it. And the more I came across such things, the more it made me diligent in the practice of citta bhavana for the demolition of the kilesas which lead one on to ever more becoming and birth. For existence or birth is what sets up the immediate conditions for suffering. Therefore, one who wants to attain complete and perfect happiness should not at the same time desire birth, which contradicts and opposes this aim, for in fact it is the erasing of the seed of this tendency from the heart which is true, complete, and perfect happiness. He said further that he not only knew about the pretas, ghosts, devaputta, and devata, but even Venerable Ajaan, who had already reached parinibbana, came regularly with metta to visit me and explain Dhamma. Generally, the teaching which Venerable Ajaan gave me laid great stress on not being negligent, and doing this by rousing up mindfulness as the assurance that one is being diligent. He said that one who has mindfulness present in any position or situation, not only when practicing meditation for samadhi or walking jankama, is in fact being diligent, because the presence of mindfulness means that he is being diligent. Mindfulness is the acknowledging Dhamma, the Dhamma of withstanding or putting up with hardships, the fighting Dhamma, the Dhamma of evading the enemy's attacks, as used in fighting, and the Dhamma of advancing fearless of death in the battle between the citta and the kilesas. But if mindfulness is the only thing that is lacking, one will lose. This is what Venerable Ajaan taught, so one who practices must develop mindfulness, and it ought to be present with Dhamma at every stage and level of the citta. What he taught me was, regardless of whether one is just beginning the training, whether the citta has achieved samadhi, whether one is just beginning the training for wisdom, one has developed wisdom, or one has reached a stage of skillfulness and penetration in the use of wisdom, in all cases mindfulness is a necessity with Dhamma at all levels. Mindfulness should never be confined to a limited field of activity, with the idea that one should have it present in those circumstances as a necessary minimum, or that so much is the maximum that is necessary. But one should promote mindfulness until it becomes firmly entrenched and becomes mahasati, and this is the way it should be, because mindfulness is a very important Dhamma in this work, and one in which those who practice should take the greatest interest. Regardless of what one is doing, whether internal or external, gross or subtle, mindfulness is an essential Dhamma which should be present and which should permeate everything that one does. In samadhi at every stage and in wisdom at every level, mindfulness must be present as a guardian continually. If mindfulness is lacking, more is lacking than would be the case if one lacked in all other forms of work and did not do them. So one may do work or not, but one should never let mindfulness be absent from oneself, from one's heart. Anyone who endeavors to develop mindfulness relentlessly is bound to clear obstructions from his path and to walk on until he gains success, regardless of how thick the kilesas are within his heart. This means that samadhi and wisdom at every level will arise and be able to gain strength due to the overpowering influence of mindfulness, that which gives them sustenance, and this is absolutely certain. The way which leads progressively from the beginning onward until it reaches the state of freedom, vimutti, of nibbana, is the way of mindfulness, and it is this that supports them. If those who would develop calm, samatha, or insight, vipassana, at all levels lack mindfulness, their calm and insight have no way that they can develop at all. From the beginning of the practice right up to the end of the way, I have never seen any Dhamma which is so remarkable and goes so deeply into the heart as mindfulness. Mindfulness is a guardian, a sustenance, and a prophylactic or preventive remedy which protects samadhi and wisdom at all levels. And these two Dhammas, samadhi and panya, can only develop and reach their fulfillment if they are associated with mindfulness to promote and look after them, which can never take place if mindfulness is absent. You must listen well to what I say, take it to heart, grasp hold of it, and never let the following be forgotten in a cloud of delusion, that mindfulness is a deep well of great strength in every aspect of striving in the way of Dhamma. Before one can alter or change one's thoughts or views in any way, they must be subjected to mindfulness, and whether they are gross or subtle, and at whatever level of Dhamma, one must have mindfulness, which is one of the most important things in the field of Dhamma practice. With regard to wisdom, when the time has come to use thought for research, one must do so to the maximum of one's ability without holding back one's strength for fear that wisdom will overflow. If one always has mindfulness to control wisdom in every aspect of investigating or research, wisdom will not be able to overflow and become trivial nonsense. The reason why wisdom becomes like water overflowing until one is unable to intervene and stop it is because there is a lack of mindfulness to control it. Then it turns into discursive thought based on memory, sanya, until finally one can find no truth in it at all. But wisdom which has mindfulness as a companion is sure to walk up towards the stage of mahapanya, great wisdom, in a way that one would not expect. Once the heart has mahasati and mahapanya as its companions, then even though the kilesas may be thicker than a mountain, they will not be able to withstand their own destruction being brought about by the power of these two, mahasati and mahapanya. When one is working to develop the way, one should not pay attention to time, place, or anything else more than one pays attention with mindfulness to the citta, or the events that arise and cease in the citta, while investigating them with wisdom. This is the way to freedom from dukkha of all kinds, which is here within one, and not dependent on place, age, or time. But the search for a secluded, peaceful place to act as a suitable battlefield where one may gain victory is the right way of Dhamma, although one must not be so concerned about it that it becomes an obsession and changes into a self-made obstacle due to one's anxiety to find a place. One should just go on searching until one has found a suitable place that is satisfactory enough. Having found a place, one should set up mindfulness and think with wisdom at the same time without wasting any more time. The four Satipatthanas and the Four Noble Truths, Satya-Dhamma, are the battleground, and in that battleground one must throw in the utmost of one's mindfulness, wisdom, faith, and effort. Don't doubt that the path, fruition, and nibbana are to be found anywhere but within the field of these four Satipatthanas and the Four Noble Truths. These are the unshakable Dhammas which have guaranteed the path and fruition through the ages since the beginningless past, and they are still the Dhammas which give complete and perfect assurance of the path and fruition at all levels without any shortcomings. Any shortcomings and inability to reach the goal are to be found within the mindfulness, wisdom, faith, and effort of each individual, and not in the aforementioned Dhammas, which are unshakable and have always been there to give assurance. So you must set your heart firmly on the path and fruition by digging down and searching in the four Satipatthanas or the Four Noble Truths with the utmost of whatever wisdom you have. Then, one day in the future, you will certainly be one of those who bestow the path and fruition on yourself through your skill, and in the most unexpected way, a way that one could never have foreseen. This explanation that I have given is a summary of the path and fruition which cannot be found elsewhere. You must try and follow it. You must get rid of all doubt concerning the essential nature, anga, of the teacher, the sasada, the Buddha, of the Dhamma and of the Sangha, as well as that of your teacher, Guru Acharya, whom the world claims has entered Nibbana already. That which is called Nibbana is not where the world thinks or believes it to be. Where it is actually located, the world is quite unable to guess. But where it is, there you will see Nibbana, the Lord Buddha, the Dhamma, the Sangha, the teacher, and also yourself, right there. And then all doubts and uncertainties of all kinds will disappear. And where is that place? That place is the 4 Saṭipaṭanas and the 4 Noble Truths, together with the heart that has Mahasati and Mahapanya, digging and searching in detail all round, until everything becomes Dhamma and absolutely true in every part, without any false knowledge and understanding remaining in those 4 Saṭipaṭanas and 4 Noble Truths at all. Then each of them is true and real. In other words, the 4 Saṭipaṭanas are true, the 4 Noble Truths are true, and the heart is true with wisdom. This is freedom, Vimutti. This is Nibbana. This is the dwelling place of the great teachers, the Buddhas, the Dhamma, the Sangha, and those Acharyas who have attained the state of purity. But once again, where is this place? It is where all anxiety and worry are at an end, where all becoming and birth are let go of, where all dukkha is let go of. You let go of them, all of them, right there. So you must endeavor to develop the way of practice for this letting go in that place. You must not indulge in speculation and guesswork which only wastes time and makes you tired and vain. Because that Dhamma is not a Dhamma of speculation or guesswork, but the true Dhamma of whoever truly does the practice which the Lord laid down. That person will reach and attain the true Dhamma without having to do any guesswork at all. When Venerable Ajaan Mun had finished his teaching out of metta, this Acharya prostrated to him within his Samadhi Bhavana. Then Venerable Ajaan Mun just moved a little bit and immediately disappeared. This time he did not come by flying through the sky, and when he went it was immediate. This Acharya said that he could never predict with any certainty what nimitta he would get for Venerable Ajaan Mun, for sometimes he would come and go as if flying through the air, whereas at other times he would come walking like a normal person and go in the same way. But his appearance was the same as it had been before he died, without any noticeable differences. In fact, he said that every time he came to teach, his appearance was always the same, and he came quite regularly out of metta to teach him. This Acharya is endowed with a rather strange destiny, of which the most outstanding features are his tendency to like living in the hills and forests and to wander about on his own, and his liking for eventful encounters of various kinds, such as with tigers. Even when he came out of the forests and met up with other bhikkhus and friends, it was only for a short while before he returned to the forest again. But despite these tendencies, he has lived his life in safety, without anything doing him any harm. At one time, in the middle of the day, he was resting in a small hut while staying in a wat. On that day, it happened that his mother came unexpectedly to the wat, and she went to his hut and called to him, "Come quickly to the sala, because just now Lady Madri is there. Please come quickly, right now." What inspired her to do this is not known, but she kept on calling him while waiting for him in front of his hut, telling him to hurry up and come quickly until he became startled, woke up completely, and ran out of the hut. He did not think of why and whether all this about Lady Madri being in the sala was true or not, for without thinking about it he just jumped up and immediately left the hut. Then the most unexpected and unusual thing happened, for hurrying out of the hut, he had only gone about 9 yards away when a huge tree in front of his hut broke and fell right on his hut, demolishing it and smashing it into fragments. If his mother had not come and roused him up so that he woke suddenly, he would have gone on sleeping and would never have been able to wake. He said that this was his Dhamma, which was still going on, for it had not yet reached its end on that day. Otherwise, that would have been his last moment for sure. After this had happened, the Acharya asked his mother why she had come and called him and woken him up in such a hurry that he had no time to think, so that he got out of the hut so quickly, and after he had woken up properly he was still puzzled, even despite the falling of the tree. His mother said that it was as if something made her feel that she must quickly go and wake him up to come and see Lady Madri, and just at that moment she saw Lady Madri actually sitting in the sala, and she said that she was Lady Madri. So she wanted the Acharya, her son, to come and meet and to welcome Lady Madri. Up to that moment, she had only heard of Lady Madri in the Vesandara Jataka story, and she had never ever dreamed that she would see her, or that she would come to sit in the sala in the forest like this. So she was completely overwhelmed and went quickly to wake up her son and bring him to the sala quickly to meet the Lady Madri. This was his mother's explanation, and the Acharya went on to say that he was amazed and never thought that such a thing could happen. But if it had not happened, I would have died for sure right then. While listening to this story, I felt as if my hair was standing on end. The Acharya said further that this was a true case of an event caused by Dhamma. As to seeing Lady Madri sitting in the sala, this was probably a Devata Nimitta in the form of Lady Madri which came to save his life. Otherwise he would almost certainly have died that day. His mother told him that she really did see a woman sitting in the sala, and she was very beautiful. In fact, she had never seen such a beautiful woman as this one, who said that she was Lady Madri. But when she went back to look for her after the tree had fallen, there was nobody there. Only a picture of Lord Vesandara and Lady Madri, which had been there for a long time. Everyone who heard of this incident was amazed and filled with wonder that such a thing could happen. This Acharya seems to have come close to the end of his life many times, for apart from the foregoing incident in which a tree fell on his hut, he has also met wild tigers face to face on several occasions, but the Devatas have been able to help him escape unharmed. We will relate one further incident where this Acharya narrowly escaped death in the following story.